Welcome to PD on the Go, the podcast that delivers bite-sized learning on communication, collaboration, and facilitation for busy teacher leaders. Tune in while you're in the car, on your lunch break, or making copies, and get ready to level up your leadership skills. My name is Hallie Case, and I'm with the Office of Professional Learning in Fairfax County Public Schools, and I'm joined today by my teammate, Mary Beth Anderson.
Hello.
So the last couple of episodes, we have talked through team challenges that were brought to us by participants throughout FCPS who have been attending our PLC series. And today we're going to tackle a little bit of a sticky, tricky one, which is that one of the challenges that was a theme from these participants was that what do you do when in a team meeting you reach consensus about a decision, but then find out later that a team member or several people don't uphold that commitment and end up doing something completely different than what was decided. So we're going to unpack this idea and try to offer some ideas for our teacher leaders, because I think, what's tricky is that we can't police our peers. Right? So before we get there, what are some reasons? We need to get to the root cause. So why is this fake consensus happening in the first place?
Yeah, I think a couple things could be reasons, but one that comes to mind is just people don't want to stir the pot, or they don't want conflict.
Yes.
So they just kind of agree, and it's also, we usually come to decisions at the end of a meeting, and people are, they're ready, they got to go pick up their kids from specials, or the next class is coming, and so they're like, okay, yep, that sounds good, just to avoid the conflict and go back to what they had intended to do. I think that's one reason. Another is sometimes people say, okay, that sounds like a good plan, but there's no actual action plan or implementation plan, so they're not sure of the how.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So there can be a cycle there of we've made the decision at the end of the meeting, we've run out of time to make sure we fully reached consensus, and maybe we have the will to do it, but not the skill to do it.
Exactly.
Or it could just be conflict avoidance altogether of I know that I'm going to go do this back in my classroom, but I'm going to say yes so that the meeting can move forward.
Yeah, or even sometimes people don't realize that it was actually a decision.
Yeah, that's true.
They thought maybe it was just an idea thrown out there, and they didn't realize, I was actually supposed to go back and do that.
So we have some things around, what do you do, whether it's outright conflict avoidance, I know I don't want to do that, I'm just going to say yes, versus I was unclear or I don't know how. We have ideas for both of those things. And first, we kind of want to think about, when you're not the boss, how do you address it? As a teacher leader, we don't hold any, power over. And it makes me think of a time when I was a teacher leader and I was leading a team where consistently this was happening. People weren't following through on the commitments, and it really was a conflict avoidance sort of situation. And the principal eventually just started attending those meetings, and when decisions were made, she would just say, is anyone here going to sabotage this? Mary Beth, are you going to sabotage this? And she would go around. And I remember thinking to myself, I can't do that. So what can I do?
Right.
So what do you do?
How can you hold people accountable?
Right.
Well, I think one thing is we can start with curiosity, right? Because things come up. There's things that happen. But how do we question without saying, you didn't do your job, or Hallie, you sabotaged this.
Right.
So it's so maybe lifting up, we made this commitment, what barriers came up, or what got in the way, so that we can think about if there is a reason that something got in the way, we can, deal with that issue and then get to the next piece, or it gives people the chance to share.
Yeah. So curiosity, and maybe pointing to the third point of it's not, like you said, it's not, hey, you didn't do this and you said you were going to, but maybe it's well, let's refer back to the decision that was made. What might have been unclear here, and really leading with that, presuming positive intentions behind what the reason might be for somebody, right?
It's like pulling up that agenda. So it said, Hallie will bring the assessment by next week. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's check in on where we are. And that I think would be a natural prompt for someone to say, oh, I'm sorry I didn't bring it today because blah, blah,
Yeah, because we're not trying to call people out, right? And it is important to a team to have consensus around things and to trust that that's going to be followed. So how can we prevent this from happening? If it's really just lack of clarity or feeling unsure, what do you do in those cases? So we already mentioned a little bit about like, is it will or is it skill? Does the person not want to do it? And resistance can sometimes be a mask for lack of confidence. So we need to make sure that when we're committing to something, everyone knows how to execute the plan.
Right.
What else?
I think that, we could give people time to like process first, like think about this decision, think about what it will look like in your classroom, and then maybe open up for questions. Or I feel like sometimes even when people say, yes, there's an action plan and we send them away, there may still be some things that are unclear. So providing some space in the meeting for people to ask questions or, give the consensus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think about like the researchers behind adaptive schools talk about the difference between dialogue and discussion and how dialogue is really the team's opportunity to get ideas out on the table. And then when you shift into discussion, you're making a decision. And you can use structures for both of those things to be really clear. Like right now, we're not, like these ideas are owned by all of us and we're not making a decision. We're just exploring options and there's a protocol we could follow for that. But then when it's time to make a decision, true consensus happens when everyone feels like they've had a voice and that they're able to contribute to the decision and that they were a part of it, right? Like that's where we get some of that commitment. And then you follow it up by defining who's going to do what by when, which we talked about in our last episode.
And I feel like a question you could ask instead of who's going to sabotage this is what will we do if we don't do this? What will we do if we don't follow through, or if someone doesn't follow through? So that's already made up front. And I feel like when you name that, it then either allows everyone to do it, or they'll bring up their point of why they feel that we shouldn't go with that decision.
Yeah, like building in the accountability, not as like we're going to get you, but just to make sure that everyone feels like they can move forward.
Yeah, because it is important that we're accountable to each other as a team, because that's how you build trust. And we've got to be accountable for our students too.
So we have some resources for this. We're going to share a direct link to the adaptive schools protocols that they've made available. And there's lots of different ones. It's a long document. You're going to want to find the decision-making tools. So you'll see a table with different titles. Look for decision-making, because that's going to guide you to some ideas around how you could structure a meeting to get to consensus. So we'll share that on our teacher leadership site, which you can find through the link in our bio on our Instagram account, which is at FCPS_PD. Or if you're in Fairfax County Public Schools, you can search PD on the Go in Atlas and find the resources there. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you join us next time for more PD on the Go.